Welcome to the PHNX Coyotes podcast, brought to you by the one and only DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah Merrill here with Craig Morgan in Montreal in our Airbnb. And Craig, we survived.
Yeah, we're not done yet, but...
We're not done yet, but we survived rounds 1 through 7 of the 2022 NHL Draft. We made it.
We did, and it was good.
It was awesome. It was really great.
It was nice once we finally made it to Montreal, actually got here.
Yes.
I thought the crowd was electric, at least especially on the first day.
Yeah.
And it was just, Montreal's such a great setting for this. It's clearly a hockey city. You feel it everywhere you go. There are people, just random people you run into on the street who are so unbelievably informed about the Canadiens and the NHL, which is a cool thing from our perspective.
Yeah, it really is. Well, obviously, everyone listening probably has a good view of what went down yesterday in round 1, but Craig and I were there for. It didn't feel you really set it up to be a long day. It went by really fast to me.
This was not what has happened in previous years. We went back. I think it was Artem Duda that tweeted it, Montreal writer for The Athletic. It was nice to return to the lightning round of day 2 of the NHL draft. It was less time in between picks, and people were really on it. Everybody knew what they were going to do. So it went really fast today, actually. I was pretty happy with that. Yeah,
especially since last night I told everyone that it would only be a 3-hour first round, and it was more like a 4.5-hour first round. So that's my bad. It helped, make up for how long.
There were a lot of trades, so
yeah, there were a lot of trades, and a few more today, which we'll get into. So we were there for rounds 2 through 7. Coyotes made some moves. Coyotes left today alone with 7 picks in the end. So still left the draft with 10 as originally when they went in, it ebbed and flowed throughout the last 2 days, but 10 picks total, 7 today. So we got to talk to some of them. We got to talk to the scouting staff about them. So we're going to dive in a little bit about more what the Coyotes accomplished today, and then a little bit more about the big picture from the weekend, including some things that didn't happen.
Indeed.
Most notably the Jakob Chychrun trade. So we'll get and we'll just start, I guess, by talking about the second round picks, because if you're going to look at the rounds, you're going to see that these are the players that also have a chance to make an impact. Maybe the 6th, 7th, you get those ones that are like Andre Palat. We always talk about a 7th round pick. The second round picks can make an impact. Maybe not for a few years, but they can. And in the draft, let's just run through who they picked. At pick 36, it was Artem Duda. He's a 6'1" defenseman from Russia. We've talked a lot about the Russian situation. So were you a little surprised to see them take a Russian this high?
Well, I was wondering how it was going to proceed for the entire NHL, because in my draft primer, I talked to 6 different executives, and they were all over the map. One executive told me they were proceeding business as usual. Others said they had reservations. Others were really concerned about the situation. With the Coyotes, when they went into this draft, I thought they were one of the teams that would be in position to execute on one of those Russian players, because they had enough draft capital where they could take a risk. But then they traded 2 second-round picks away on the first day, so I wondered if they were still going to do it. They clearly thought highly enough of this player's skill set that they were willing to. This is a high pick that they expended on him. But the other thing, I think the sense is, and I talked to Ryan Jankowski about this, is it is what it is for them. If it takes 2 years developing in Russia, they're okay with that. Just let it happen organically, and they'll sort it out at some point down the road. These players probably will be allowed to come over again, so it's okay. They're okay with that timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. And he, of course, wasn't here today, much for those same reasons. But, just going with the theme, and I don't know if this came across yesterday since I wasn't on the show that much, but the Coyotes have been drafting some great names. We got Cooley, Geeky, Maverick.
Not for writers, they're not great names.
Yeah, no. But
not fun at all.
Duda, that's a good one.
Duda.
Well, we'll
Duda.
also have to, check with him on the pronunciation of his name, which
as
we'll get to.
With all players.
As we will, because the next player here is another one that I'm still not 100% sure on the name. Julian, it's either Lutz or Lutz. We'll clarify next week at development camp. But a forward from Germany, another over 6 foot. Forward 6'2", and Craig and I talked about this yesterday. the Coyotes drafted all North American players in round 1. But Craig had just previously reported how many resources were invested into European scouting. So you felt like going into today, this was going to be the European day, and it was.
Yeah, it really was.
And Craig specifically, and there's a player later we'll get to they're Polish born, but play in Germany. So to have 2 players come out of Germany in this draft class just for the Coyotes, you can really see the investment in that scouting region pay off.
Yeah, Teal Fowler is the scout for Central Europe, and I think people know him by now because he's the one that laid first eyes on J.J. Mosier and really followed him and convinced them to draft him. He rediscovered Karel Vejmelka, who, of course, came over and had some success with the Coyotes as well. Teal's doing some good work, and they clearly have some faith in his opinions because they executed a couple more of those picks. He's becoming a little bit of a legend.
Yes, and we got to talk to Julian today to hear a little bit more about what he is working on with his game.
Continue improving my skating. I want to be a great skater. Like, I have a tall size, and if I add good skating to that, I have good skating, but if I add even better skating, I can be a danger.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear him talk about his development. I want to spend a little time on this because it's important for people to remember probably none of these players are going to be in a Coyotes jersey next year. That's just the reality of the development curve in the NHL, especially when you're drafting such young players. It's only a handful of players in some drafts, and that's when you have elite players. A draft like this year, you're going to have like 1 or 2 guys who maybe step into an NHL lineup. But that's okay. That's important. I know that the Coyotes have a philosophy of overbaking their prospects. They want them to develop slowly. They don't want to rush them. They don't want to lose their confidence as much as anything. And when they're ready to play in the NHL, that doesn't mean just throw them on a lower line. It means step into the role that you're supposed to be playing. Yeah. So let them develop. I think Julian's going to go back to Munich. That's the plan right now. Most of these players will end up going back to their original teams. We'll get to another one in a minute who took a different path. But most of these guys are going to go back to their teams and spend at least another year developing that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were pretty understanding about that. All of them said that was their plan. Of course, then said, oh, well, we know whatever's best according to the Coyotes. But none of them said, like, oh, I'm going to try and crack the team. So everyone, manage your expectations on when you'll see these players. But we talk a lot about not just next year, but years down the line. And this draft and what was accomplished today is, laying the groundwork for, a few years from now and to have that success. So it's really exciting. Let's move on to the next pick. The 67th pick overall by the Coyotes today was Miko Matikka.
I love that name.
Great name.
Needs to play with Mattias Pacelli.
I know. That would be unreal. An unreal line. From Finland. He's 6'3". Another, you can really detect the pattern here. Ever since the Coyotes drafted Logan Cooley at 5'10", nobody's been below 6 feet since. Yeah. But, yeah, what's really interesting about Miko is the fact that he's from Finland, but he's actually going to be playing for the University of Denver next year. I think it's really interesting. He told us that he's been wanting to go to college for 2 years. Yeah. And it's just really interesting to see how the development paths of players has evolved over the last few years. It used to be in Europe, you go to the European leagues. In Canada, you go to CHL. So to see a European player, we're seeing them more and more, and how he's been so set on this, it's really cool.
Daryl Plandowski told me that, first of all, for a young kid like this who's developing, the league is a tough place. It's a tough league to play against men. The NCAA is almost a better place for him. Well, they think it is a better place for him to develop his game. The cool side of this, as we talked about with him, we have a clip I know coming up, is Denver plays Arizona State next year. So Josh Doan is going up against Miko Matikka next year. That game is in December, I believe, in Denver. Yeah, 2 games.
December 2nd and 3rd, I believe.
Yeah, so we may have to take a road trip up to Denver for that. But we did get the chance to talk to Miko about this. We were just looking at the schedule for college, and Denver hosts Arizona State. You knew this already? So you're going to get a chance to play.
I'll play those guys, yeah.
A little excited about that? You might have a pretty big contingent watching you.
Probably. I hope so. Yeah. I hope so, man.
Yeah. You're going to have mixed emotions, ASU fans watching you, right? You're a Coyotes prospect, but you're the enemy for a little while.
No. We'll see. We'll see.
Right.
So he's excited. He's ready for the challenge. You can just really I really got the sense from him that he's, he has tunnel vision for his goals, and he's really, really excited for this opportunity.
I still haven't been to the DNVR bar, so
Either have I, and guess what? They're renovating it. So it's a perfect time for us to go.
Sounds like it.
If you're watching this, Saul, please send us to Denver in December. And I'm not flying with you though.
Yeah, I understand that.
Flying to a winter climate in winter.
How do you feel about driving
with you?
15 hours in
No,
winter
we're gonna
storms?
crash.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm never traveling with you again. No offense. Okay. All right, let's move on to a pick that we didn't think necessarily was going to happen because the Coyotes actually made a trade. They traded up for this pick 94 in the third round. They traded the 2023 third round pick, which was Dallas's pick originally, to Chicago to get this pick. So when that happens, especially in the later rounds, you must know that they really want this player. And that player was Jérémy
Langlois.
Langlois?
Yeah. Oh. Defenseman from Cape Breton.
Yes. Cheers, obviously, as they were drafting a Quebec player.
That's
every
right,
time,
yeah.
Every time. It didn't matter what team they were going to. Every time a Quebec player was drafted, huge cheers. And, some of the cheers might have come from his 17 friends and family members who were in attendance that he told us about.
He downplayed that, too. Like, did you have a big kid? He was like, well, like 17. I was like, oh, my God, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. But, yeah, another defenseman.
Another defenseman from the Q.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me. And side note on this, and I talked to the two head scouts about this. In 3 years under Bill Armstrong, and I know he couldn't sit in on the first draft, but in 3 years with this staff, they haven't drafted a single player from the OHL. I find that fascinating. The OHL every year produces the largest amount of NHL draft prospects. The Coyotes have not tapped into it yet. That's going to change. Look, they had the pandemic. The O basically didn't play last year, so that makes not this past season, the season before. So that impacts your evaluation as well. It makes it a lot harder, but it's kind of weird that they haven't had an OHL player since Bill Armstrong took over.
Yeah, it is very interesting. But they definitely favored Quebec today, and we saw that from him. And we also had the opportunity. Oh, before we get to his video, the hair of this draft class. I just need to say this. Like, I just talked about the names. The hair. Oh my gosh. And Jérémy is right up there with the hair. So you'll see it in this clip, but we did get to talk to Jérémy at
Langlois.
Just nervous, I'd say. Just like the second round, I knew I wasn't going to go in the second round, and the third round was coming. And I knew like maybe at the late third round I could have a chance. And like I said, when I heard that Arizona got the pick, I was just no, like, I don't know how to say it. It was just a great feeling, an amazing feeling. Yeah, I saw them, like, I was looking at the table and I saw them looking my way like a couple times. So I was like, okay, yeah, maybe it's gonna be me.
I think it's so funny that he said he saw them looking at him, and that's how he knew. Just funny kid.
Yeah, seriously, what did that look like?
Yeah.
Hey.
It's like, who is it? Oh my God! When you feel like you have eyes on you,
right.
that might have been what happened. But really, really thrilled for him and excited to see how he goes forward. And this is continuing with large defensemen.
Yeah.
The 131st pick, and now we're getting a little deeper in the draft, but still.
Yeah.
6'5" defenseman from Canada, Matthew Morden.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get the chance to speak to him, but what do you know about Matthew?
Well, Canadian University, first of all, that's a rarity.
That's rare, unlike college in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know, and I just talked to, of course, in my scouting series, I talked to the Canadian staff about how they also scout the Canadian universities, and one of their scouts made a point of mentioning that to me. So it was almost like he was saying, hey, keep an eye on this because there's going to be a rare Canadian university player. Now, I know he had originally committed to Harvard, but it sounds like he's going to play in the USHL. I had mentioned that on Twitter that he had committed to Harvard, but it doesn't sound like he's going to play with John Farinacci, who, of course, is another Coyotes prospect who was recently named the captain of the Harvard hockey team. Matthew's going to play in the USHL next season, so keep an eye on him. The USHL, another one of those areas that people thought would have some impact this year in the draft. The NTTB, of course, had some star players going, but the USHL has improved by leaps and bounds, so they're starting to get their name called regularly in the NHL draft as well.
Yeah, and another Canadian player going to the U.S., like I mentioned before, seeing the differing paths. It's really interesting to see. Up next, continuing crazy names.
I'm never going to be able to spell this.
Defenseman, Maksymilian Szuber, Szuber.
The Z is silent.
Szuber.
Szuber.
And Max.
Can I say it like that?
Max. There's no X in there. It's just.
No, it's a K.
However you think it's spelled, you're wrong.
Do you know what I'm going to think of? I'm going to think
it's
of.
on the screen.
I'm going to think
we
of.
Can't see the screen.
I'm going to think of
Sorry,
Michaela Perkins when I think of this. That's how I'm going to remember how to spell it with a K instead of an X. Mac, and then forget it. I'm still going to butcher this name because there's just way too much going on in that first name.
But another large defenseman, 6'3" defenseman, and this is who I was referring to. He plays in Germany, but he's Polish.
He's born in Poland, which is just crazy.
There's not a lot of NHL players born.
I
in
think
Poland.
I read on NHL Public Relations. I had guessed. I mean, it wasn't much of a leap to guess that he was the first Polish draft pick in Coyotes history. But I think I read on NHL Public Relations on their Twitter account that he's the first Polish draft pick since Wojtek Wolski, who of course played for the Coyotes and was a great Don Maloney acquisition that helped in one of their playoff runs.
Yeah, so really exciting for him. Really excited to see players from all over the world, and again that German region.
Yep, Teal Fowler, legend.
Unreal. And last but not least,
Good
this
luck.
one's funny because literally I think all week we were, please don't pick in the 7th round. Please don't pick in the 7th round. And all of a sudden, we have a trade to announce, and of course, the Coyotes trade into the 7th round. They actually got back the pick that was originally theirs, that they gave away to San Jose when they sent Adin Hill to San Jose. So they got that pick back, full circle, really interesting. Artem Zlnka?
Sure.
Okay. There's no vowels.
Let's go with
There's
that.
barely any vowels in his last name.
No, there's not enough values.
There's only one.
I can't even say vowels.
As you can
That's
see.
how sleep deprived we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a forward. He's 6 feet, a right shot.
From Slovakia.
From Slovakia.
I always-
Slovakia, by the way, had an amazing draft. We'll
No
get
doubt.
into that in a
To have
little
the
bit.
first and second
Yeah.
overall picks is unbelievable. Props to Miro Shatan. When I look at the 7th round, I always look at it as, okay, we're going to take a flyer on a guy. This is just, we see something in him. It's probably not going to pan out, but we see something there. So let's spend a pick on that. You look at a couple of the picks that they've had in the 7th round, and clearly they're not in the NHL yet, but they're intriguing. Ben McCartney has done some really good things down in Tucson. They love his energy. And then I think Sam Lipkin was a 7th round pick too with the Chicago Steel. They like his development. So maybe the 7th round could become a little bit of a thing for the Coyotes.
Yeah, you honestly never know.
Yeah.
It's really cool. We talk about how it's a complete gamble on the future.
Oh, boy. Look at that transition. Running on like 4 hours
Jacob
of sleep.
is giving me a thumbs down. Listen, I know I probably used that transition also like 50 times doing this, but just work with me here.
Everything's new to me, Leah. I'm old. I don't remember anything.
Yesterday, people had the chance to make some good money yesterday betting on the NHL draft because Shane Wright was minus money to go first overall. Didn't go first overall. You could have made so much money on draft position, over-unders. I know Nemec to go.
That one. Yeah,
like
at
that.
number 2.
Unbelievable. And that was just really fun, a fun thing that you could do on the DraftKings Sportsbook app when it came to the NHL draft. Sadly, the NHL draft is over, so now there's nothing you can really bet on with the NHL until you can bet on team futures right now. So if you want to get in some team future action, you can. I'm looking at a hockey event that's a little bit closer to right now, and that is the World Junior Championship. Hard to wrap my head around it being in the summer just because it had to be moved. But it is coming up in August. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and usually Sean does this, but Sean is not in Montreal with us. So I'm going to do a DraftKings Sportsbook app pick of the week.
Here it goes.
And I'm going to pick, and this will come as a shock to no one, Canada to win the World Juniors. They're currently plus 125. Granted, they have the best odds, but it's still plus money. So you can get some money there.
Hosting the tournament, too.
And they're hosting the tournament. So
Homer. She's a homer.
I mean, listen, Canada has given us some issues this week. I'm not going to lie about that.
Come to Canada, they said. It'll be great. We can't get you there, of course, because Air Canada is a disaster. And, oh, by the way, you might lose your internet because Rogers is crashing as well. But other than that, it'll be great here in Canada. Sorry.
But
do I sound a little bitter? We actually had a good time here.
Bet on Canada to win the World Juniors in August. Get your futures in now. The odds are going to change. But that's fun that you can bet on that. So be sure to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code PHNX. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code PHNX only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Well, that was all the picks.
Yeah.
And then we got to talk to the scouts.
Yes, we did.
The people who were on the road most of the year, the ones who've been watching these players, not just this last year, but a couple of years even. And this is their work coming to fruition. And now, it's out of their hands. It's into the hands of the development staff and the coaching staff. But we got to talk to the scouts, and these were some of their initial takeaways about today and yesterday.
We wanted to improve our skill. We wanted to improve our size. We wanted to improve our depth. And by the end of the 7 rounds, we feel we did it. We had all kinds of scenarios. It's amazing. when you don't control the draft, you have about things fly through your head and so many different scenarios. What are we going to do with the pick? For us, we felt there was a group of 3 or 4 forwards. We had to make some decisions that are hard, and we were just happy to get the guy we really wanted.
And I think it's somewhat of luck that we ended up with 2 forwards and 2 defensemen out of our first 4 picks, but we're extremely happy about that we were able to get that balance. And you don't really design it that way, but the way that it ended up, that we've got the 6'7" defenseman and the 6'1" skilled defenseman, it's really nice how it ended up, and it's fortunate for us.
My main takeaways from this draft, and I think part of this was planned. I'm sure that they put a premium on premium positions. To me, you build up the middle and you build on defense. And the Coyotes got 2 centers right at the top of the draft, and they got 5 defensemen out of this draft. The defensemen, I think you look at this more in terms of adding depth to your organization, and you always need it on the blue line because there are always injuries. You don't know how they're going to develop. That development path is often longer on defense. But when I look at how you want to go about it, and again, we don't know whether these guys are going to pan out or not, but in Logan Cooley, you have a potential number 1 center with incredibly dynamic side to his game, a guy who Bill Armstrong said makes guys around him better. Then you go to Connor Geekie. We talked to Corey Proman right after the draft today. If he becomes more consistent in his game, is what Corey Proman told us, he's a number 2 center. So you could have theoretically walked away from this draft with a number 1 center and a number 2 center. We all know the Coyotes' history at the center position. So think about that for a moment. It's anything but a fait accompli, but think about that possibility. Then think about adding all this depth to your defense. You still need those top-end guys, but they're only through 1 draft. What they've done is they've given themselves a bunch of opportunities. They've added to the prospect pool at 2 critical positions. Look at the center depth overall now. They went out and got a couple players late in the season as well, in Jack McBain and Nathan Smith. They have Barrett Hayton, who took some strides late in that season. That's not a bad start now for their center depth chart. There's some options there. It doesn't look so scary anymore.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I think, looking at what they were able to accomplish, it's all of those things that's laying the groundwork for having a team that's going to be successful in the future. We've talked a ton about the need for having centers, the need for having size, and those are 2 things that's what wins you Stanley Cups these days. Yeah. Size and center depth, and that they started to pick up the pieces in this draft with the moves that they made. And I mean, obviously they're speaking to the media, so who knows, but they seemed really happy with what they were able to accomplish. And it was also funny, this wasn't in that clip particularly, but they were talking about how stressful it was to drop down to the 3rd overall pick. You finish second to last, you kind of maybe mentally assume you're going to pick second, and they admitted that caused them some stress. But we saw how everything unfolded last night. They actually had the pick between Shane Wright and Logan Cooley. They still went with Cooley.
They wanted a defenseman to go number 2. They really did, and it panned out exactly as they hoped.
So for me, and I think I said this already this week, but maybe picking 3rd this year wasn't so bad.
We'll see.
Yeah, and again, Craig has touched on this already, but we're not going to know how this draft was for a few years, maybe even more than a few years. And we don't, we're not grading, we're not rating, we have no clue. But
yeah, we don't know, you don't know, and the scouts don't know. The scouts don't know, so don't pretend you do.
The scouts don't know.
So don't get hung up on grading the draft, saying, oh my God, they killed it in this draft, or I don't like it, they failed in this draft. None of us knows.
No.
None of us knows. Let's be honest about that.
You can say that they accomplished what they set out to do.
Yes.
They did. And I think overall that made it successful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's all you can hope for.
Yeah.
Again, we're evaluating 18-year-old kids with physical, mental, psychological development ahead of them. You just don't know what's coming. You don't know their family situation. You don't know if they're going to fit into the system. There's so many variables that we're talking about. This is not an easy job. This is the hardest job in professional sports, in my opinion, NHL scouting, because they're dealing with young kids.
Yep.
So give it time. We'll see. But, have some faith at least in Bill Armstrong's experience, in Daryl Plandowski's experience, Ryan Jankowski's, and a bunch of these scouts who have just such a wealth of experience. New ideas are important all the time to infuse into a scouting staff. But to me, in this profession in particular, there is no substitute for experience.
Yep, and we've seen what Daryl Plandowski has been able to accomplish. So to bring that experience to this team is amazing. And one other thing before we move on talking about the scouts, one other thing they touched on is that who they are as people and how they're looking for people who want to fit into a team, and how they don't, at the end of the day, they're trying to make the Coyotes better, not find the best pieces that won't go together. They're trying to build the best team. So they're also considering good teammates, locker room. So to know that that's also part of it, and we saw yesterday, Maverick Lamoureux, his smile.
He was a lot
We've
of fun
heard
to
that he
talk
lights up a room. Everyone we talk to, I mean, 18-year-old. You meet a lot of 18-year-olds on the street. They might not give you the time of day, and I know it's different. They're in the spotlight. They might have been media trained, whatever. But you kind of have a BS radar.
You can definitely get a sense of someone.
These kids that we met today and yesterday, genuinely nice kids, and I'm really excited to see how their future unfolds. And I hope that they can fulfill their dreams and be part of the NHL and be on the Arizona Coyotes, and in return make this team better in the long run. Yeah.
And the last point, and you touched on this already earlier, the last point that I think is one of the main takeaways for me from this draft, it really felt like Bill Armstrong's stamp was on this draft, because there's a lot of size. You mentioned it. Right after Logan Cooley, there was not another kid under 6'1", and there were a lot of kids that were well above 6 foot or 6'1". They got some.
We'll have to go back and look at what the average height was from
got
this
some
draft.
Big size, and they brought. I mean, feel however you want to feel about Zach Kassian, is another guy who's basically like Bill says, run you through the wall kind of guy. This is going to be a physical team. This is going to be a punishing team. It's going to be a lot like St. Louis was. That's the character of the team that Bill wants to build, and we saw it executed today at the NHL Draft.
Yep, and the other thing they did, they stockpiled even more picks for future years.
Yes, that's the other thing.
So
keep them flowing.
Yep, absolutely. And after the show ends, I can't wait to go get a beer. Like, we've just been working so hard. Just kidding. We still have more work to do. Can't wait to get a beer, though, when I get home. And I'll be drinking Four Peaks for sure. And by the way, all of the pictures yesterday and all the videos, it just looked like such a blast at Four Peaks. Everybody who came out, thank you so much. Like, this is what we envisioned PHNX to be from the start. A community of people, a place for Coyotes fans to all be together.
Right.
And we saw some video of people reacting to the picks, reacting to trades, and to see that energy, it just makes me so excited for the future. And thank you to Four Peaks for hosting us. Thank you for providing amazing food and drinks at the bar yesterday. And I can't wait to actually head over to Four Peaks also when we get back.
Yeah, I'm sorry we couldn't be there. Obviously we have a job to do, but I'm glad that so many of you turned out. I heard it was an incredible atmosphere. Petey, of course, was there. Sean was there. We had a lot of people there. Rudo came down. Greg Powers came in. So
Josh Doan called in. So
by and large, we got a lot of positive response from that. So again, thank you all for showing up. Really, thank you all for following along this entire week of draft coverage.
Yeah.
It's obviously a big deal to the future of the Coyotes. It means a lot, so we wanted to give it the coverage that it deserved, and you guys help by coming out. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big piece of it of what we want to do at PHNX is to have that community aspect, and Four Peaks is a great place to do it for me.
Yep.
It's been a favorite of mine for a really long time, but that's like I said, that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yep, absolutely. And as always, when enjoying Four Peaks, you must be 21 and over and enjoy responsibly. One more thing we need to talk about, the thing that did not happen, and that is Jakob Chychrun did not move.
No, and I'm gonna be looking into this story a bit more because there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's conflicting information out there. I reported today that the Coyotes had a deal in place. None of the Coyotes officials really wanted to talk about this. All Bill Armstrong said was, Jacob's going to come back and play for us next season, and we expect him to be a big part of the team. That's essentially the quote that he gave to everybody. But my understanding was there might have been a deal in place. I'm going to dive into why that maybe fell through, but more so this notion that Jakob Chychrun is going to be a Coyote next year. He's not going anywhere in the immediate future. And one of the things that I think is going to happen, I've discussed this in stories in the past, but when you look at the progression of some of their younger players under Andre Tourigny, Clayton Keller clearly took a big step forward and became a star in this game. Lawson Krause took a really big step forward. They're still in negotiations with him, but there was a lot of chatter about Lawson Krause being traded at the draft. I kept saying Lawson Krause is not on the trade block in spite of other rumors, and Lawson Krause obviously did not get traded because he is the perfect profile of what Bill Armstrong wants in a player. He's not going anywhere. And then beyond that, like when Nick Schmaltz came back from his injury, he took a big step forward. They still think there's more in his game, but he took a big step. And finally, Barrett Hayton. So you've got 4 young guys in that core that took major steps forward under Andre Tourigny. The one guy who didn't, Jakob Chychrun. So I think the Coyotes are going to try to get to the bottom of why that didn't happen. There are going to be some pretty honest conversations that happen between Jakob Chychrun and Bill Armstrong because there is going to be an expectation that Jakob Chychrun performs next season. That's all I'm going to say on it. Again, I'm going to dig more into this story to try and find out where things sit. We clearly know that Jakob Chychrun wanted to go elsewhere. He wanted the chance to compete for a playoff. Well, everybody wants to compete for a playoff, but you still got a job. You still got a job to do, right? So you got to perform to the best of your abilities in your current job.
So Jakob Chychrun will be on the Arizona Coyotes.
Yes, he will.
All right, there you have it. So that's the draft week. In summary, we'll still be talking about it. Obviously, a lot of stuff's going to come out. Development camp is next week. I'm going to go and talk to some of these players.
Yeah, I'm going to blow it off.
Craig is bailing. Petey's bailing. I'm just, whatever. It's fine. I really liked talking to them this week, so I'm excited to talk to everyone again and kind of get their perspective also on Arizona. It's July. It's the hottest time of the year, so that could be shocking for maybe, I don't know, a player from Finland or maybe as an experience. Although I know he's been to Arizona, so. Yeah. But lots more to come, and thank you all for following along our draft coverage. Still more to come. The work's not over. We'll have another audio episode for you tomorrow morning. That's just kind of tie some bows on things, and Craig still has stories to write. Craig, by the way, was up till 5 a.m. writing.
Yeah.
And went to bed and woke up at 9 a.m. So this is the kind of work that's going into this. So we really hope that you become a member so you can read the work that Craig worked so hard to do. We appreciate your support. Become a member at gophnx.com. Sign up for an annual membership and get a shirt from the locker when you do. If you want to just try it out, get your first month for 50 cents. Join our members only Discord. I still need to pop in there. We've just been so busy.
I know.
But the community that's being built, it all starts with you. So become a member, join the family. It's a great thing.
Please excuse any typos that you might have found in those last 2 stories.
Yeah. Craig took a 2-minute nap before the show, by the way.
That was weird, actually.
He literally took a 2-minute nap.
A nap that I couldn't avoid, I'll put it that way. Like my body was like, I'm done. You're going to close your eyes for a moment here.
This episode of PHNX Coyotes fueled by Craig's 2-minute nap.
That's right. It got me there.
And his 3 espresso shot Tim Hortons this morning.
Yeah, that was an interesting drink. We'll talk about Tim Hortons tomorrow.
We'll talk about Tim Hortons and Rogers and all of that
yeah.
on another day. But seriously, we can't thank everybody enough. And I said it last night when I was on the draft show, but I'll say it again. Everyone's tweets this week, especially as we went through our travel woes, but just in general and the support. It's been phenomenal. We can't thank you all enough. We can't thank everybody listening here today enough. Shout out to the chat as well. Shout out to the Discord and just all of our members, whether you became a member when we launched or you became a member right now. We appreciate you all so much. Please follow along on Twitter at PHNX_Coyotes. Still tons of stuff coming out, and we'll have 5 days a week of Coyotes coverage all summer long. It doesn't matter that it's the off season. And subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube and follow PHNX Sports across all social platforms as well. Tons of great stuff there as well. Anything else you want to say today? Or you just want to go
thanks again,
crawl
guys.
in bed?
Not yet.
You can't,
we got
he
more
still
work.
has to work. All right, everybody, thank you so
Jacob's
much
rubbing
for
his
watching.
tummy. He wants to eat.
Thank you all so much for watching. We appreciate you. Audio episode, like I said, dropping tomorrow. Please rate, review, and subscribe, by the way, wherever you get your podcasts. And, wow, enjoy the rest of your Friday, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.